She has also translated into English selected Tagalog novels and short stories written by Patricio Mariano, Servando de los Angeles, Antonio Sempio, Macario Pineda, AC Fabian, Rosario de Guzman, Lingat, and Liwaywal Arceo. She is Professor Emeritus at the Ateneo de Manila University.
Morning. From novels to films, 1921 to 1938, some preliminary notes. When I wrote my doctoral dissertation years ago, Dr. Lumbera was my advisor, I read as many Tagalog novels as I could. I had proposed to write a history of the novel that was unarguably the most popular fare in the first half of the 20th century. The journey was difficult. The search for primary sources in book form and those serialized in popular magazines, such as Liwayway, was torture. To make the long story short, I read a total of over 300 Tagalog novels of varying length, written between 1905 to 1975. While looking for a suitable topic for this conference, I was struck by the fact that movie producers such as Jose Nepomuceno and Vicente Zalumbides turned their attention to a large number of Tagalog novels and made them into highly successful films in the first decades of filmmaking. What better way was there to ensure commercial success for the fledgling industry than tapping into highly popular Tagalog novels, which by the 1920s had attracted thousands of readers? When watching films on television, especially those made in the 1950s or 1960s, millennials like you are probably turned off by the convoluted plots, the predictable characters, the all too familiar situations that the characters often find themselves in, the flowery language, so different from the curt, crisp style of contemporary films, the tired formula of the happy ending. These films are so vastly different from the historical films of Gerard Tarog, the darkly depressing works of Brillante Mendoza and Eric Mati, the contemporary take on love stories by Kaki Molina or Dan Villegas, to name a few. The objective of this talk is to provide you with a list of novels I actually studied. I read approximately 70 novels of the hundreds published in the 1920s and 1930s that were made into films. That's a total of 20 novels. Each novel will be described briefly, with the exception of Teofilo Salco's Ang Magmamani, 1924, which was so popular it had several editions, and Antonio Sempio's Ang Punyan Laginto, 1933, which was the first talkie. The date of each film's release and its cast will be indicated. Liwayway's slogan, and the rise of younger writers drifting further away from the revolution. It is wrong to see the Tagalog novels emerging only in the 1920s. As early as the late 1890s, novels were being written by Gabriel Beato Francisco, a trend that continued into the first decades of American rule. With a large number of novels in book form written by Lope K. Santos, Cosino Aguilar, Inigo Regalado, to name a few, dealt with weighty socio-political themes, were generally anti-colonial in all its forms, deeply historical. There were works that explored familial values, insisted on the need for moral order, warned the people against succumbing to American influences, and outdid each other, delineating love and all its vicissitudes. In 1922, the Roses-owned Photo News became Liwayway, dedicated to publishing novels and short stories, through which, in a weekly ritual, thousands of readers will be transported into a world of persecuted orphans, ill-starred lovers and their tormentors, abusive parents, dastardly villains, long-suffering mothers, philandering husbands, unfaithful lovers, and the perennial heroine martyr for love. In its award-winning slogan, testify to this trust, liwayway ang lingguhang kagiliw-giliw, nakapagtuturo at nakakaaliw. In order to attract young writers, the magazine also conducted a contest which led to the discovery of such talents as 18-year-old Fausto Calauran, Remigio Matcastro, Gregorio Coaching, Teodoro Virrey, Antonio Sempio, Franco Vera Reyes, Teofilo Saco, and Lazaro Francisco, among others. They belong to a generation schooled under American tutelage. The Tagalog novels, 1921 to 1938. First, Iñigo Regalaro's classic work, Sampagitang Walang Mango, came out in 1921. It revolved around Nelita and Don Bandino, members of Manila's glittering high society. The neglected wife succumbed to the blandishment of Paquito, a wealthy playboy. Don Bandino himself, not as blameless as he would like himself to be, punished the erring wife by leaving her behind as he and their daughter took a long trip abroad. One transgression and the adulterous woman lost everything. Filmed in 1936 and starred Leopoldo Salcedo and Soledad Aquino. 2. Teofilo Sacos Ang Magmamani, 1924, dealt with a complicated relationship between a mother and her daughter and how the former, prompted by a mixture of love and opportunism, gave up her younger lover, who had been smitten with her daughter, the 16-year-old peanut vendor named Ninay. The novel narrated how Tentay, the provinciana who thought her rich lover had abandoned her and left the child with an old farmer. She eventually became the toast of Manila's cabarets, met and fell in love with a handsome suitor, and became his mistress. After leaving her lover, she entered a convent to atone for her sins. There, she befriended the young Ninay, her daughter, sent to the convent to be educated. In a dramatic final scene, Ninay found out who her parents were, the dying nun and the priest now administering the last rites to her. This was a novel among the many that depicted highly charged bucolic scenes where sexual desire was conveyed in seemingly innocuous images. Filmed in 1938 and starred Rogelio de la Rosa, Tita Doran Must Be Ninay, Mona Lisa, Rosita Rivera, and Ben Rubio. Third, Gregorio Coaching was one of the younger writers who eventually became an influential magazine editor. His first novel, Sanggumay, drew on the popular motif of the prostitute with a golden heart. Reduced to poverty, Dolores Calleja was forced to become a cabaret dancer known as Wild Rose. To the help of a young man to whom her father had extended assistance in the past, Dolores turned her back on her job. This was a theme that had run through dozens of novels and films, probably the earliest biblical, Magdalene, the prostitute with golden heart. Filmed in 1938 and starred Angel Esmeralda and Yolanda Marquez. Fourth, Gregorio Coaching. Incidentally, Gregorio Coaching is the tatay, is the father of Francisco Coaching, the famous comics writer. Gregorio Coaching's version of the Cinderella story about the persecuted maiden, Nanay Ko, 1925, depicted the story of Mila Green, who had been adopted by Nicanor. And when Nicanor married Lucy, the young girl's life turned into a nightmare. A mysterious character, Mahiwagang Kamay, thwarted Lucy's attempts to kill the girl. It turned out that wicked Lucy was the real mother of the orphan. Surprise, surprise. This motif would be used in Od na Sayam in a lot of novels, comics, and TV shows. From Roberta to Tulis Liit, Wanted Perfect Mother, Annalisa, Flor de Luna, Mga Batang Yagit, etc. Filmed in 1925 and starred Mary Walter. 5. Novels were written to show how modernization had transformed the city and the difficulties confronted by provincianos and provincianas who first set foot in the urban jungle and grappled with the endless parties of the rich the grating sound of English being spoken by the wealthy, the pleasure domes and the mushroom. Simplicio Flores offered a negative critique of the changing landscape of the city in Nang Magulo ang Maynila in 1925, filmed in 1936 and starred Rosa del Rosario. 6. Florentino Collantes was a popular poet of the pre-war years. His Ang Lumang Simbahan, 1928, was steeped in legend and romance. The novel told the story of a man who had killed a priest and turned into an outlaw. It also showed why an old church stroked fear among the people in the barrio. Many years later, a treasure chest buried by the outlaw was discovered by the outlaw's son. The romanticized Tulisan would appear in later novels as a member of a dissident movement with a clear ideology and no longer romanticized. F.D. Cochin wrote a number of comics stories revolving around the Tulisan, a few of which were filmed. I remember Tulisan in the 50s and it starred, 60s rather, Amalia Fuentes. Filmed in 1928 and starred Juanito Angeles, Gregorio Fernandez, Nati Fernandez, and Mary Walter. 7. With a great deal of realism and a clear-eyed view of life, Franco Soledad Reyes, Ang Makata at Paraluma, 1933, provided an interesting comparison of two women, whereas the American women who married Rosauro, a famous poet, proved to be a condescending and materialistic Florin, his Filipino sweetheart, from who had earlier been separated, remained steadfast in her love for the poet who had lost his eyesight after his wife died in an accident. Filmed in 1930 and starred Rosita Rivera and Carlos Padilla Sr., the lolo of Jaja Padilla. I don't know, yes, lolo of Jaja Padilla. Number 8. Another novel with a specific historical context was Gracia Rosario's Alandas ng Pag-ibig, 1929. Arturo, a bright, honest, but poor reporter, was rejected by Adoracion in favor of Don Jaime, a wealthy hacendero. The novelist painted a glittering portrait of the Gilded Age, even as the elite's wasteful consumption of wealth and materialism, blamed on Western values, were critiqued in the novel. The class card was often used in hundreds of novels, comics, and films, against which love was often contextualized. Filmed in 1929 and starred Annie Harris, Paquito Villa, and Domingo Principe. 9. Victor Fernandez's Bulaklak ng Luha, 1929, celebrated the need to preserve traditional values, especially on matters related to love and marriage. The novel unfolded an idyllic love story that turned into tragedy, but the novel also depicted the ongoing issues of workers exploited by factory owners and innocent women forced into prostitution. Filmed in 1928 and starred Nelia Alvarez, Miguel Anzures, and Gregorio Tigman. 10. Lazaro Francisco, who easily gained popularity with his domestic dramas, wrote Ama in 1929. With bold strokes, the novelist lifted the story from purely personal concerns and injected a heavy dose of social realism. And an old farmer was shown as a victim of the various institutions, feudalism, politics, and the law. Having been pummeled by heavy blows from the landowner and the governor, the old farmer, like the biblical Job, forgave them. Order was eventually restored to a happy ending, where the farmer was revealed to be the older brother of the landowner and the governor. Ama was a probable precursor of a number of novels and films that tackled the endemic problem of agrarian unrest. Read the novels, for example, of Brigido Batumbakal and Amado V. Hernandez and the works of the mga Agos Desierto writers in the 1960s. And of course, Biyaya ng Lupa followed this model. Filmed in 1936 and starred Rosario Moreno, Carlos Padilla Sr., and Nat Ruby. Ang Longhita. May still. This is Gloria Romero, but I'm referring to the earlier version. 1929 by Fausto Calauran revolved around Nati and how willingly she gave up her love for her sweetheart Roberto for the sake of Beba, her older sister, who had also fallen in love with the same man. Giving him up meant turning her back on the world to seek refuge in the convent. The construct of a nun as a woman disillusioned by love probably helped in shaping the public image of the nun, as retreating into the convent to protect herself from the world rather than as a personal response to a call from God. Results Maria Clara was the earliest image of the type. Filmed in 1931 and starred Jose Padilla Jr., Rosita Rivera, and Gerardo de Leon. Later on, it starred Gloria Romero in the 1950s. Franco Vera Reyes, whose anti-clericalism was well known, wrote one of the most devastating attacks on the man in the castle. In Anak ng Pare, 1931, Padre Delfin made it clear that the only way the married woman Lundin could become a real mother was for her to bear the priest's child. She fell for the ploy, unbeknownst to her husband. The child grew up without knowing the truth. He fell in love with a young woman who, it was later revealed, was also the child of Padre Delfin. The religious who professed the vow of celibacy was responsible for destroying lives. Filmed in 1935 and starred Corazon Noble and Rogelio de la Rosa. Corazon Noble, I think, is the mother of J11. Fausto Galauran, Ligaw na Bulaklak, 1931. This is not Ligaw na Bulaklak that starred Alma Moreno in the 1970s. So nauna ito. It was about a woman persecuted by the wife and children of her adoptive parent, Dr. Cruz. It was revealed as the story was about to end that Nita was the granddaughter of Don Guillermo, who killed the man who had seduced Nitang's mother. She begged the American Governor General to spare the life of her grandfather. The appeal was made too late as the grandfather had died in prison. In film in 1932, starred Rogelio de la Rosa, Rosa del Rosario, and Gregorio Fernandez. 14. The stereotype of the poor but virtuous woman subjected to cruelty by her husband's wealthy relative was also used in Remigio Castro's Makiling. Ito yung lolo ni, parang sa Channel 2?
Noli?
No, of course not. Angelo. Filmed in 1938 and starred Rogelio de la Rosa and Gerardo de Leon, who started out as an actor. 15. For sheer drama, and emotionally charged scenes of abuse a woman ever received from a powerful man, no pre-war novel could rival Antonio Sempio's Ang Punyal na Ginto in 1933. That's this movie still. That one was the novel, The Golden Dagger, the English translation of Ang Punyal na Ginto, which I did. The novel never for a moment took its eyes off the heroine named Dalisay, who fell in love with the wealthy Dante, son of Don Sergio, who owned the land. Terrified of being ridiculed by his wealthy friends in high society for allowing his son to marry a poor woman, Don Sergio resorted to the most malevolent acts. He bribed Dalisay, and when he failed, he ordered his goons to torture Store. When her son became grievously sick, he demanded that she surrender the child to him. During a clandestine visit to her son, Don Sergio caught her and had her arrested and trumped up charge. Upon her release, and with the help of a friend, she built the grand and lavish Templo ni Venus, a pleasure dome that catered to Manila's pleasure-loving men, whose entry to her private chamber was the ultimate reward. She attempted to poison Don Sergio and was again charged with a crime. She won the case, but as a consequence of a chain of agonizing experiences, she lost her mind. She returned to her barrio but was spurned by the community. She died in the arms of the spineless Dante, a broken figure of victimization and exploitation. A great deal of films and novels are the construct of a deranged woman screaming, cursing, and babbling incoherently. Filmed in 1938 as the first talking movie and starred Alma Delia as Dalisay, Nati Bernardo, Tina del Rosario, Ramon Estrella, and Carlos Padilla Sr. 16. Antonio Sempio's Nakdalita, 1933, was also tapped into the great class divide to narrate a love story. This is different from the starrer with Rosa Rosal and Tony Santos starrer in the 1950s by Lamberto Adeliana. Mistakenly thinking that his American wife had perished when the ship that she boarded early sank, Carlos married Anita. When Anita discovered that the first wife was still alive, she decided to leave Carlos. She gave birth to Rafael, who after many years was reconciled to his wealthy father. Filmed in 1936 and starred Soledad Aquino, Rosario Moreno, and Carlos Padilla. 17. Rosalia Guinaldo was famous for her novels that not only dealt with the poor, but also chronicled the lives of affluent people, powerful government officials, philandering husbands, among others. Her Ang Pag-ibig ng Isang Ina revolved around a mother and her estranged son, and their eventual reconciliation after many years. Filmed in 1939 and starred Pasita Del Rio, Cecilia Joaquin, and Virginia Salcedo, 18. Antonio Centio's Dasalang Perlas, 1936, was a classic tearjerker meant to appeal to female readers. The novel followed the horrible fate of a mother in Ponghule as she bore the brunt of her children's unspeakable cruelty. She was reduced to poverty, and only Alberto among her 6 children came to his mother's aid. With the help of the good son, Impong staged a performance where she brought charges against her 5 children in the court, presided over by conscience for all the wrongdoings her children had committed against her. Lili Monteverde of Regal Films used to stage films made specially for Mother's Day, and Rosa Mia personified the mother as Martin in countless Sampaguita films. Filmed in 1938 and starred Tito Arevalo, Mona Lisa, and Gerardo de Leon. 19. Lazaro Francisco, demonstrating his understanding of popular taste, drew on the motif of the persecuted children to write Sa Paanan ng Cruz, 1937. The novel revolved around the sufferings of 2 children as they interacted with the second wife of their uncle who had adopted them. Filmed in 1938 and starred Soledad Aquino, Tito Arevalo, Tita Duran, Angel Esmeralda, and Carlos Padilla Sr. Finally, Fausto Galauran's Ang Kabanang Tipan, 1937, returned to one of the writer's favorite themes, life inside a convent. The novel began with the decision of Dolores, a novice in the convent, to leave the world behind and experience life in the outside world. She ran straight into the exciting circle of wine, revelry, and delight. She also became a love-struck woman that led to a broken heart. Dejected and contrite, Dolores returned to the convent where God's love remained pure and steadfast. Filmed in 1938 and starred Reynaldo Dante, Lucita Guyena, Ningning, and Andres Centenera. Okay, there. Some preliminary observations. In this brief discussion, I've been acclaimed to establish direct connections between the 2 genres, each of which has particular historically specific conventions and codes. I have not watched any of the films cited above, and I am therefore not in any position to refer to any specific scenes or characters in the film. I have no idea how much revision had been done on the story as serialized and to accommodate the needs of the films or the director's objective. The following is a list of insights culled from the novels that would get filtered into the films. 1. As the decades wore on, the novels lost much of its interest in obvious political themes that preoccupied the early generation of writers born in the last decades in the Spanish period, and saw Americanization and various forms of colonialism as an evil that must be fought through literature. Technology, faster production of weekly magazine copies, and subsequent translations for the YY sister magazines, related dissemination helped change the cultural landscape as well too. Thus, the novels of the 1920s and 1930s generally depicted personal relationships and domestic issues. Although that seemed to be the thrust, a great number insisted in providing socio-political context. The insidious effect of westernization, the people's change in mores, the transformation of Manila's landscape, the uncritical openness to Western values, among others. Even Galauran ruled this tendency in several novels. 3. Responding to the demands of the serial, the novelists generally wrote lengthy, complicated stories with dizzying twists and turns, acted on by a number of characters made to confront colorful situations that took their emotional toll not only on the characters but on the readers as well. The novels were serialized and must therefore end with a cliffhanger for the reader to continue buying a story. In contrast, the earlier novels were published in book form and did not need such exciting chapter endings. 4. The novels were generally plot-driven and composed of situations where forces of good and evil were pitted against each other in unambiguous ways. There was not much room for introspection and reverie or philosophizing. inward movements that modern readers habitually expect from Western novels, such as the novels of Faulkner, Kafka, Mom, Proust, Bellow, etc. Consequently, the novels, the reader is treated to the side of characters grappling with personal problems, oftentimes caused by other people, a lover, a parent, a rival, a child, an authority figure, a stranger, a brother or sister, other relatives, or by age-old conflicts related to class differences, church beliefs, dominant institutions such as family, societal norms, ideologies, and sometimes by the character's own weaknesses or frailties. Dishonesty, quickness to pass judgment, unfaithfulness, recklessness, fickleness, malice, among others. 6. The dominant color design, therefore, is bold and strong, white or black, hardly any shades of gray. The narrative was basically chronological as events unfolded from one point to another. Little use of medias res or any narrative technique that is not linear, until an ending, often happy, was reached with little regard to situation that defined realism. 7. The characters are depicted either by the all-knowing omniscient point of view, telling the reader what to think of the characters, or by the characters' action, dialogues with other characters, and sometimes own personal ruminations and debates within themselves. Number 8. Thus, in a world where characters function as symbols, the novelist did not strive to create characters that will be called three-dimensional, to use E.M. Forster's term, or those characters with enough length, depth, and complexity, shaped by psychological forces, traumas, or motivations, driven by mysterious instincts in a torrent of irrational factors. For example, the woman who became a prostitute was explained as a helpless victim of society, as Tentay in ang Bumangani or Dalisay in ang Punya ni Ginto. The novelists were great believers in tadhana or fate. For another, the novels did not explain why children persecuted their parents, as in the Salang Perlas, as if the children were spawns of Satan. For another, it took a Mike de Leon film, Sister Stella L., to show another facet of being a nun, the activist and committed woman who fought the dictatorship, and not merely someone who spent all her days in prayer. After establishing the nature of the problem and the complications it brought about, the novelist resorted to such older techniques as mistaken identity, overheard conversation, or explanatory letters, among others, to solve the problem that plunged the character into such despair. Once again, order was imposed on the fictional universe. This has been a formula perfected in forms of popular culture through the years. Number 10. It is possible that novels provided the movies with definite types. The probinsyana as meek, mad, and helpless, but who at times could seek vengeance when push came to shove, as demonstrated by Dalisay. The lover as weak and spineless who did not fight for her loved one, as Dante in Punya ni Ginto and Roberto in ang Monghita. The haughty Don and Doña who looked down on the children's destitute sweethearts. The city girl, a brash and arrogant and westernized American woman, as greedy and materialistic. The outlaw as a romantic figure and a victim forced to retreat from society. The long-suffering mother, the playboy and philanderer, the reprehensible scoundrel, the exploited tenants, and the ruthless hacendero. In such characters, dominant ideologies related to gender and class were constantly reinforced. 11. A particular use of Tagalog constituted the novels, where the action was slow-paced and where the characters lovingly spend their time waxing poetic about love or looping the lovers' infidelities as if time stood still, and where lengthy descriptions of bucolic scenes abounded. The calm and tranquility of the countryside, the community feasting at the riverbank, the lovers professing their eternal love surrounded by nature's beauty. The novel